Ladies and gentlemen, today I have the pleasure to welcome Ms. Hallie LeRand. Ms. Hallie LeRand is Executive Director at Global Garden Refugee Training Farm. Ms. Hallie, thank you very much for joining me under the Human Rights Tree.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, today I recall that in November 18, 2022, I posted a blog after doing experimenting gardening. Basically,
Mm.
what I did is to talk to a friend, and she offered me a plot, and I went there and I tried my first experience doing gardening, and I really enjoyed it.
Oh,
So since then, I have been trying to reach out to people who have been working in that field and trying to learn more, trying to see what challenges they are facing as organizations and all of that. But
wow.
the goal is to talk about your organization called Global Gardening Refugee Training Farm. But before we go into talking about your organization, vision, mission, and goals, I would love to really know who is the person behind the title of executive director? Who is Miss Ali?
Yeah. So I am executive director of Global Gardens, and I started there in 2017
Okay.
um, after working somewhere else. And I started out as a volunteer. The organization was not making did not have revenue to pay staff, and we're just a two-person team. And so I started out as a volunteer and climbed from there. But I have a bachelor's in psychology from UIC in
Mhm.
Chicago, and I was working in research in the anthropology department, and the research project was about the community gardening and urban farming initiatives in Chicago. And so my job was to go around to different farms and gardens and interview the people involved. And as a part of that project, I discovered Global Gardens, which has been around since 2012. And I just fell in love with it and the people. And I was living in Indiana at the time. I'm from Northwest Indiana in Munster, but I have lived in Chicago, in both Rogers Park and Evanston, since 2021.
Uh, Actually, I lived in Indiana for 6 months.
You did. Oh, I
Yeah,
think you told me that.
it was my first experience in the United States, and they sent me there in Vincent to learn
Oh, right, right. I remember you told me that.
to
That's
learn
very
to learn English.
well.
Right,
Wow.
so Indiana has a significant part in my life because it's where I started my journey in United States. So,
Ooh.
did you grow up in a farming family?
No, not at all. I grew up I grew up in a suburb. Um, my mom liked to garden and plant flowers, and so did my grandpa. But I grew up always loving nature and always wanting to be around it and in it, outside all the time. And I was kind of looking for a job that would, eventually later in life that would allow me to work at the intersection of humans and nature, because I didn't want to be an ecologist or a scientist per se and just like be focusing on the plants, but I wanted the human element too. And so oddly enough, it worked out. But no, I didn't come from a farming background. There are a lot of farms in Indiana, and Chicago. My life was always oriented at least a little bit in Chicago, just because Northwest Indiana is so close. You could get to downtown in half an hour without traffic
Oh, okay.
from my childhood home. But Chicago has a very rich urban agriculture scene, if you will. A lot of initiatives going on, so that helped also spark an interest.
I see. Can you tell us a little bit about the roots of this organization called Global Garden
Mhm.
Refugee Training Farm?
Yeah, so it started it was started by a woman named Linda Seiler, and she was working for an organization in Chicago that was serving refugees, and they noticed this federal grant through the RAP um, program. It's called the Refugee Agricultural Partnership Program, and it's a federal grant to start a farm that serves refugees. So there are other farms around the United States that are supporting refugees. And there are a lot of refugees that come from agricultural backgrounds, and then they come to Chicago or another major city in the US, and it's so different from their country. And, um, they struggle as a result of it with finding community, with mental health, with not being able to have their land or, farm anymore. So that's kind of the idea behind the grant. So she got applied to the grant, got it, and established the farm in Albany Park in Chicago because at the time it was now it's been housing costs have been rising there. It's been gentrifying a bit, but at the time, it was a place where newly arrived refugees were uh, getting resettled and where they were. So she thought that having an urban farm in close proximity to that would make sense. So she had an agricultural background. She had a degree from Cornell in pest management. And so her experience with refugee populations and her experience with agriculture made her her um her job at the refugee agency um thought she'd be a good fit for managing this grant. Long story short, after the grant ran out, it was a 3-year grant. The organization she was working for didn't want to keep it going and keep applying for grants to keep it going. So she quit her job and established Global Gardens as an independent 501(c)(3). And she selected the name because her idea behind it was that um she was going to take these skills that the refugees already had in agriculture and just show them kind of how to adapt them to American markets, take them to farmers markets, help them sell to restaurants, help them, be a farmer in the United States. Um, as of actually last week, we've changed the name officially to just Global Gardens.
Okay.
So that was a really recent name change. But yes, we were Global Garden Refugee Training Farm for over a decade.
So what triggered the change
Um,
of
a
the
few
name?
a few things. When I took over as director in January of this year, I knew it was something I wanted to do because for a few reasons. The first one is I think well, first of all, the name is long and confusing. Garden
Mm.
and farm are in the same word, and that causes confusion.
Okay.
We are a farm, we're 1 acre. So, and the folks who are farming there are making income from selling there. So it's not like a little community garden. So, but
Mm.
it's a it's we have about 100 or 70 or so refugees growing on the land. So there are a lot of folks involved. But the name, yeah, it's long. The word training, I feel like is gives a wrong impression that we're somehow bestowing knowledge upon these folks when really they already have so much knowledge about farming and agriculture. And if anything, they've trained me in um a lot of stuff. So I just I thought it represented us better. Also, I think folks who come here as a refugee, they don't they don't think of the word refugee isn't like this static identity that this identity that they carry with themselves um for the rest of their life in the United States. Some of our folks have been here for a short time, for like a year, for maybe a month, but a lot of them have been here for over a decade. And um and just from getting feedback from them, they felt like having the word refugee in there, like they didn't want it. So we just shortened it to Global Gardens, plural, because there are a lot of gardens within our project, a lot of different people growing. So
So
Global Garden.
did they see the word refugees as a negative connotation?
No, not a negative connotation. Just like they, for example, we have one farmer here, one farmer growing with us from Burundi, and she's been here since 2008. Um, and she became a citizen.
Mm.
Um, and she doesn't really think of herself as um or identify herself as a refugee. It's a part of her background, but it's not like she doesn't seem to carry that name with her. Um,
So it's something temporary.
yeah,
They put you in a
yeah,
temporary category, and at certain point, you are U.S. citizens and American like everybody else. Um,
yeah,
the
yeah.
other thing you brought up also is gardening and farming, garden farming. Do you think the concept of the name differ based on the size, or what is the difference between gardening and farming and
Well,
for the people who don't know?
yeah, yeah. I think this is, I think in, at least in the English language, gardening sort of implies a small project.
Okay.
A
Mm,
community, when I think of a community garden, I think of a
mm,
small, maybe less than a quarter acre collection of small gardens. But our land is bigger. It's a little over an acre, and
mm,
half of the acre, half of the 1 acre is split between 6 farmers who are growing for sale. So they each have like 2,000 square feet. And then the other half of the acre is split into 57 like 3 by 40 plots for refugee families, and they're just growing for home consumption. So some people are growing, yeah, just for fun, and some people are going for sale. I think another, so that's the, yeah, that's the structure of
mm,
it. And I think size is a factor. I think whether or not you're making income from your produce is a factor. Our we call them market farmers, these 6 folks. Our market farmers make anywhere between like 15 to 20 grand a season of
okay.
supplemental income selling their produce to restaurants and farmers markets. Um, so I don't, yeah, I think of that as like, oh, they have a farm instead of they have a garden. It could just be a silly like English language like thing that I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. You say the project is located in the Albany Park neighborhood. For the people who don't know Chicago very well, where is the neighborhood located? Mm,
Yeah, Albany Park is on Chicago's northwest side, at Lawrence and Sacramento. So it's we're right by the river, actually, the Chicago River.
oh,
Um,
okay.
yep.
Access to water then.
Well, yeah, we don't use the river for water, but in like a if we ever got into a dire drought or something. Yeah.
Okay. So when did you came into the project and how that journey unfolded?
Mhm. I came into it in 2017
Mm,
after working on a research project for UIC where Global Gardens was a research site. So I was it was a research project with the anthropology department researching community gardens and urban farms. And because my job was to interview people that were involved in these projects, I did a lot of interviews with the farmers, the refugees, most of our farmers are from Burma. I'd say
okay.
Burma and different countries in Africa
Mm.
are the main ethnic, the main people who are
Ethnic
growing.
group? Mm.
Yeah, so yeah, Congo, Burundi, Cameroon, and yeah, Burma. So I was doing a lot of interviews with them for the project, um, regarding what were they growing? Why were they growing it? Were they growing any medicinal plants? What was gardening doing or farming, whatever? What was it doing for their mental health? How were they benefiting from it? So it was a project meant to explore like the benefits of urban gardening. And so I got to know all these folks really well and became very, very close with them. And so it's not this, the farm is not, and that sort of speaks to a larger topic that I like to talk about, which is it's not just a farm. This is a really important community space for these people who often don't feel like there are community spaces for them in
Mm,
Chicago. They're either at the home or a religious institution or the farm. They don't at least that's what they've told me and what I observe.
mm,
They some people come there at 4 a.m. and they leave at 9 p.m. We cook together. We eat together there. It's a very close community. So I know I picked up on that when I started getting involved and I loved it. And um I felt I started to feel like these people were my family um and yeah, so from 2017 to 2019, I volunteered with the founder, Linda, and then Linda got a big USDA grant, and that allowed me to be paid as part-time staff. And that's when we started this like market farmer program. Before 2019, it was more or less a community garden for refugee a large, community garden for refugee families. Nobody was selling.
mm,
Sometimes people would casually take stuff to a local market, but yeah, it wasn't anything big. But in 2020, 2019, sorry, we got a USDA grant that was meant to support like a market farmer program. So we had these six people who had always been really involved in the farm, and my job was to help them like sell their produce. And so we started getting involved with local restaurants and more farmers markets and other wholesale buyers. Um, and I started helping them sell vegetables. And then after we got that USDA grant, we got two more big funding sources. We got two foundations. And so that allowed us to both be paid as full-time staff, and it allowed that Linda retired last year and I took over as director. So now we are at two full-time and then a seasonal part-time uh staff. And because I mean, I'm sure if you're a small organization or small nonprofit, you're kind of doing everything. The
yes.
marketing, the accounting, the operations. So it's been interesting.
Mm. Often when people create a non-profit organization, they have a vision,
Mhm.
missions, and goals. When you come to your non-profit organization, what are the vision you have for your non-profit, the missions, and the goals for the
Yeah.
future? Mm,
Well, the mission is to improve access for vegetables for refugee families and also for the neighbors around the farm, whether they're from Albany Park or anywhere in Chicago. Um, that's the first part of it. The second part is to um, feed feed their souls through reconnection with the soil and food production. The third aspect of it is to provide supplemental income for participating farmers, participating market farmers. Um, and then the fourth tenet is to um, support refugees in farming. So the the large scale vision is to facilitate a reconnection is to help by growing by cultivating a garden. These people are um cultivating a sense of healing within themselves, and I would love to eventually have more land. We have a waiting list now for farmers who want to garden with us. So I'd love to eventually see more land so that more farmers can cultivate community, can make friends, can have increased food security, um, can reap mental health benefits. It's also the vegetables they're growing are um, they grow a lot of things that are culturally important vegetables to them that you can't find around here as well, or that are like really expensive in the grocery store. So they save a lot of money by being able to grow these vegetables and maintain a connection with their culture. So
When you come to like farming, based on at least on my experience, I believe that there are different steps. There is working on the land before putting the seed. And when you finish that process, you put the seed. And after that, you have to tender, make sure there are no weed around. And after there is the harvest, and after the harvest, you have to clean up. Can you take us in that process, how in your farm those different step works and how you organize all those people through going through those different steps?
yeah. So the first step um is to add so in the springtime we add compost to the
Okay.
garden beds, and that's delivered in a big truckload and then
Mm,
dumped on our farm, and the farmers individually take wheelbarrows and put it on their gardens.
mm.
Um so
Spec-
uh,
if you don't mind me interrupting, can you be more specific on the month you start doing that? I know you share spring season you start, but which month do you choose to do that kind of work? Mm.
yeah. So we start doing that in April
Okay.
for a few reasons. You
Mm,
can start earlier in Chicago, but we actually historically we have not gotten water access until April.
mm,
So that's dictated things. Um, Sometimes, we have a lot of like low tunnels or like
mm.
hoop houses to keep the vegetables warm. So sometimes people will like plant in there before it gets before April, like around March. But yeah, the compost usually comes in April. I think there was a year when we got it in March, but usually it's April.
Okay.
Don't want to get it in February. It's still too cold. So,
Yeah.
we want to make sure like the ground is not going to be frozen. So,
Mm,
um, uh, eh, so we get the compost in April delivered, and the farmers spread it all around their gardens. And then they will plant things out for the crops they're planting outside, like not inside the hoop house. They would be planting things like root crops, like radish, um, greens like spinach or maybe lettuce or arugula. Mizuna is another one we like at the farm. It's a Southeast Asian green. Greens and root crops don't mind the cold as much, but April would be like too early to plant tomatoes or peppers or eggplant. So yeah, we're sowing. I don't do any of the farming, but we do provide all of our farmers the seeds and the baby plants.
okay.
So, um, so I'm disseminating seeds to both the families who are growing for home consumption and to the market farmers. So for the families growing for home consumption, I select like 8 different things and I set them out on a table and people can just come scoop. I include common things like, or not common things, that's not the right word. I include things popular in America, such as lettuce. But I also include things that would be culturally important to them, such as water spinach or Chinese spinach in Asian green. You can find it like in the Argyle market. Um, and so that that's always gone like by the end of the day. But for the market farmers, the seed selection is a little more strategic because we're growing for American markets, so we have to make sure we're growing enough stuff that we know that they will buy. Um, So it's a mix of things culturally important to them and also that Americans will buy at the farmers market. So that's in April, disseminate the seeds. Um, and in May, the farmers plant the baby plants or the transplants. So tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, other other culturally important crops. Um, and then in June, the customers kind of kick off at different points. Like we have some restaurants who will buy as soon as we have greens. I'll just text the chef and I'll say, "Hey, we have arugula," and they'll just start buying it whenever we have it. But then some other sales outlets like farmers markets, those start up at different points. Some start in May, some start in June. So, but June to like September is really the meat of like the growing season. So the farmers are constantly planting. Once they harvest a crop, they'll plant another one. Harvest a crop, plant another one. Um, there are certain things that don't like the hot weather. Um, so if they need advice, they're pretty good now about like vegetable seasonality, but some vegetables are new to them, like kale, for example. Our farmer from Burundi like hadn't grown kale until she got to the United States. So I did help her with that, like just understanding the seasonality of it. It's a pretty cold hardy crop, so it's good for cold weather. But it also has done fine in the really hot weather, honestly,
Mm.
at our farm. Um, and then in October, the markets start to wind down. They all again end at different points. The farmers are getting those last plantings in by like early October, I'd say, and preparing their hoop houses to try to extend the growing season a little bit. But by like January, it becomes a matter of like there's just not enough sunlight for
Okay.
the vegetables to keep growing tall. So that's kind of an overview of what the year looks like. But we also have community events at the farm. So those are kind of interspersed. Like we have a concert series on the second Saturday of each month. We have cooking classes led by the farmers and also led by local chefs. Anybody from the public can come. So there's a lot more going on besides just farming, but
When you come to the lots, um, my impression that you have products that are destined to families who are participating in the gardening, and they are product which are destined for the selling to local restaurants and farmers market. How do you divide the lot? Do you say this lot is for the families to cultivate and
Mhm.
take home, or do you say just grow the thing and we will divide when the thing grow up, when the
that's
product? How do you resolve that those um, problems that may occur?
that's a really good question. And it's really hard. Because the short answer is that I divide it up ahead of time. I say,
Okay.
you're here, you're here, you're here, you're here. You guys hate each other, so you go over here, you go over here. You know, um, and then okay, let's try to have the market farmers on this side of the lot, and then the
Okay.
family gardeners, we call them, on the other side of the lot. But it's hard. It's hard on a number of levels. The first reason why it's hard is it's a question of how much space should be family gardens and how much space should be market farming. Sometimes I think there's tension between the family gardeners want more space and the market farmers want more space. So I just try my best to measure it out such that it's half and half. Half of our acre is family gardens, half of it is market farmers so that it's equal. I don't think I have it measured out exactly, but I did like get out. We kind of had a farm makeover last year. Like we reorganized the garden beds and everything, and so everything is in a new spot. And I took that opportunity to like measure with like a measuring tape and say, okay, let me make sure all the market farmers have the same amount of space because that's caused conflict in the past. People would say, why does so and so have more space than I do? And yeah, it's hard.
Mm.
I think also people people like certain spots better on the farm. Maybe one spot has more like has more shade or more trees, and then one spot is closer to the water. So it's really hard. I've learned that I can't make everyone happy,
Mm,
and that you know, uh, it's yeah, when we reorganized the farm, I just said first come, first serve. Whoever is here
mm,
first on this day in April, we will go select your garden together and you'll be able to tell me where you ideally would want to be. Um, but yeah, I don't have to now that things are reorganized, I don't have to deal with that. That's only something that has happened twice. Once in
mm.
2012 when we built the farm, and another time last year when we kind of rebuilt it. So thankfully it's like it's done. But it would happen again if we got additional land. So
I see. Usually, most of the refugees, they grew up, farming, but they are not expert, they are not technically trained. So, in your organization, do you bring people who have technical expertise in farming to teach them a little bit on how to better farm? Of course, they have the skills, but how to better utilize the small part of land and make and grow more food. Do you invite those people to come to your span and speak?
yes, we do.
Mm,
We have a mix of people who speak. It depends on the topic. For topics like pest management, I I can as a person without an agricultural background, but a lot of
mm,
knowledge in agriculture, I can scratch the surface. I can help them with things like vegetable seasonality. Um, I can help them with marketing, with I'm helping them with accounting now. So this is the first time that a lot of them have or we started issuing them 1099s last year because they were just making more and more income. And so a lot of them have never received a 1099 tax form. So there's training and like just here's what it means to write off an expense. Like if you buy something for your garden, you need to keep track of that, keep the receipt. So stuff like that.
the
Um,
IRS is knocking at the door.
yeah, exactly. Um, I help with that. I help with for example, the
Mm,
hoop houses. If
mm,
somebody needs to build one, I can help them with that. So
mm,
there's a lot that I'd say it's like 75% me and the staff helping them, and 25% outside organizations giving a talk. Like we will have someone give a talk soon on cover cropping. So like, when your garden, if you have a garden that's just laying there, you should plant something in it to improve soil health. And then after the crop grows tall, you cut it off.
mm,
Like, yeah, so there are specific topics um that I will talk to them about, and that outside organizations like University of Illinois Extension will talk about. So Extension has
mm,
an office. It's University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana downstate, but they have an office in Chicago, dedicated to helping people, helping gardens, helping farmers, helping with, oh, you have a problem with your Swiss chard, you have an insect that's eating it, you can show us a picture and we'll help you with it, stuff like that. So
mm,
um so yeah, some topics I do, some topics they do.
mm,
Um and our former director, Linda, she had um more of a technical agricultural background. So
mm.
sometimes I'll even still call her for advice.
I see. When it comes to the produce, how do you deal with the challenges? Do you have a main produce that you say it must be grown?
Mm.
And often do the refugees come up with different kind of produce that they want to grow? And how do you reconcile those two options and make it work for the organization?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the way that the market farmer program is structured is that we grow for the farmers markets. Um, they know at this point, after being market farmers for like 4 years, most of them have been farming with us for 4 years, marketing. Um, they know what crops the Americans will ask for. They'll ask for lettuce, arugula, tomatoes, but they've also done a good job of integrating crops that are culturally important to them and then kind of introducing them to an American audience. So now we have people at the market come up to us and ask us for sour leaf, which is like the hibiscus leaf.
Mm,
Burmese people eat it. Um, so with the so there with the seed selection, I'm recommending like, hey, you guys, I know that Americans will like this type of lettuce, so I'm gonna buy this for you, and I would recommend that you grow it. But I never tell them what to plant unless we have like there is a restaurant customer who buys a lot of arugula all throughout the summer. And so I gave that seed to two people, two of the farmers, and I said, okay, you guys are going to be the arugula people. So just keep keep growing it all
mm,
summer.
mm,
But that's the only guidance I give because if they were brand new to farming, it might be a bit different, but these folks have been farming with us for 4 years, so um, and they'll eventually graduate out of like the market farmer program, and then a new cohort will come in. But um, they there's not a lot of crop planning that goes into our operation.
mm,
There ideally should be, but because we're just growing so much different stuff, they just kind of it's just kind of random. Um, but we need to make sure of is that there's enough variety. Um, we don't want to just be bringing carrots to the market all summer. We need to make sure
mm.
there's a lot of different stuff. Um, as far as how it works on a day-to-day basis, the chef or the buyer communicates with me, and then I tell the farmer, and then my staff delivers it. So it's sort of like there's a chain of what goes on when there's a sale. At the farmers markets, our seasonal staff drives the farmers to the market, helps them set up, and it's the farmers' vegetables, and the staff person is just there to talk about the organization, talk about the mission, explain things to customers because most of the farmers are limited in English. So it's really just like an English barrier and
Mm.
like a driving. Most of the farmers don't drive, so that's like the reason we have staff there. But so that's also the last thing I'll say about that is we have um we have a grant from ConAgra Brands Foundation to pay the farmers to donate to food pantries. So, um, let's say one day, for example, a farmer just has a lot of lettuce. Like it's not selling well at the market and they just have a lot of it. They can pick 100 bunches of it and my staff will deliver it to the food pantry and then the farmer gets paid for every bunch. We just have to we write down every single sale that happens. But that's nice because the food pantry gets it for free, the farmer gets paid for the lettuce, everybody's happy. So,
I see. Mm, listening to, going through our conversation, I have the impression you want to build a community of people through gardening. But the other impression I'm getting also, you, despite the community you are trying to build is very diverse. And
yeah.
often when you part diversity, you talk about different cultures and different conceptions. And when you come to those people who come from different parts of the world, when their cultures clash, how do you find a ways to to deal with those challenges you face? And can you give us a specific example of that conflict and how you deal with it if it's not too much to ask? Mm.
Yeah, yeah. That's a really good question. A lot of good questions here.
Okay.
It's so true. I mean, we
Mm,
have a lot of different ethnic groups. Even within Burma, the country, or Myanmar, there are a
Mm,
lot of different ethnic groups, and we have a lot of them at the farm. So there is even ethnic tensions between groups within the same country. And the first step for me is acknowledging that there is some ethnic tension that has already been there before the farm came.
mm,
This ethnic group in Burma already thinks less of this ethnic group, and that's gonna be expressed when they're put together at our farm. So
mm,
I acknowledge that. I acknowledge that I can't understand it because I am not from either of those places. Um, and I try to I think I so there are certain times where it has escalated. It's never been like dramatic, but I just like one farmer um from Burundi was yelling at another farmer from Bhutan, um and you know she did this and she did that, and um it's listening to both sides. It's, acting as a calm presence.
mm,
Uh, Also making sure that they are understanding each other correctly, because that has been a lot of it has been just language misunderstandings.
mm,
Everybody at our farm is trying to speak, um, is trying to like communicate, not everybody, but some people are trying to communicate in English, and it's
mm,
not going well. Sometimes in between the farmers from Burma, they're trying to communicate in, this specific dialect, and it's not working. So I think that actually the first step beyond just being calm is like making sure that they because sometimes they just misunderstood each other's English. Um, so
miscommunication. Mm,
yeah, communication, and
mm,
just f making sure that there's space for people to gather and just eat together. I mean, that's kind of all that I can there's only so much I can do about um ethnic tensions that have been there in Burma for dozens
okay.
of years. So what can I do? Well, I can provide a space where these people can sit down, eat
Mm,
together. Food is a very cooked food, and the process of cooking food is a
yeah.
very big bonding activity at the farm.
Mm,
So I found that a lot of the tensions that have been smoothed out during
mm.
meals.
Oh, I
And
see.
and not even maybe things aren't perfect, but it sort of starts with like, hey, uh, lasale, which means come eat in
Mm,
Burmese. And then okay, and then it smooth things out. So
yeah.
yeah.
I truly believe meal can be a tool to resolving conflict. So, what kind of food do you cook and how you make the choices on
Um,
cooking food? Is it based on what you're growing, or you just have an idea we need to cook this and you cook it?
um, the farmers do all the cooking, and
Okay.
it's very informal. It's very
Mm,
like sometimes they'll cook at home and then bring it for people, and we'll all eat it together. We'll all sit down. Um, or whoever wants to. Sometimes it's more formal, like a cooking class. Like one of the farmers will lead a cooking class on how to cook a Burmese dish, and anybody can come. And then we'll eat the leftovers. We'll eat it with the people who attended the cooking class.
mm,
Um, Sometimes it's um yeah, we're going to be building an outdoor kitchen at the farm next year, so I'm excited
okay.
for that. That'll be make it easier to cook at the farm because now it's
Mm,
just like they just make a fire and like just grab a pot, and it's pretty casual.
and
We
cooking.
have like an annual potluck where the farmers bring all of the ingredients to the farm, and they're like various fires around. People will bring like a whole chicken and just um
Mm,
so Because most of our farmers are from Burma, like they're cooking Burmese food. There's always rice. You can't eat anything without rice. You can't,
Mm,
even in their language, like the first thing you say to someone is, you know, hi, sarpipilar, which means like, have you eaten it's like, have you eaten rice today or something like that? It's like the
mm,
first thing you ask someone. So rice is usually involved. And then yeah, it is very much based on what's in the garden. Like, uh, and they eat so much produce. They
okay.
eat so much of it, and it really cooks down. So, yeah, it's definitely like the meals are based on what's growing in the garden and also based on like, oh, do I need to keep this for a customer? So maybe I won't eat too much of it and yeah, kind of thing.
Okay. Through our conversation, also, I learned that you bring entertainment. It's not just working and eating, but you bring musicians. What kind of music do you play, and do the refugees have a say on what kind of music they like to hear?
Hmm. Yeah. So we have a grant that has asked us or encouraged us to bring music from other cultural traditions to the
Mm,
farm. So yeah, the farmers have a say in like at the end of the season I'll ask them, "What do you think of the concert series?" Like I'll just ask for general feedback. Is there
mm,
anything you want to see? Do you have a friend who plays music? I haven't had luck finding Burmese musicians out here,
okay.
but every year I try. Every year I'm like, if anybody knows a
Mm,
Burmese musician, let me know. Um, so yeah, they have a say in as far as like they can get, if all of them said at the end of the season, like, oh, Haley, we don't like when you have X like this band, then I wouldn't have that band anymore, All of them
mm,
have been pretty happy with it. And I think it's designed like the purpose of the grant is to um expose them to music that they wouldn't
like
otherwise
a
hear.
diverse kind of music. Mm.
Yeah. Like
Do you-
they probably like we have a Bengali band that plays every year. And
Okay.
so they probably wouldn't hear unless they're from that region, they probably
Mm,
wouldn't hear Bengali music like on the radio. And they're not like going out to uh, at least for our population of farmers, they're not like going out to bars and clubs and restaurants and concerts
mm,
a lot. Um so yeah, it's designed to bring new musical traditions into their
mm.
awareness and maybe yeah. So
Do you expose them also to American music and how
um
they?
kind of yeah, like in July we have for the past 2 years I've had like kind of a country western group
Okay.
play at the
Mm.
farm. So um yeah, so far feedback has been okay. We'll see what the farmers think at the end of the season in
So
December.
do they just listen or they dance also? How it goes?
They dance as well.
They
They
dance to
dance.
the music.
Yeah,
Well,
they sway.
so it's like you are kind of putting different activities, together. I feel like is a kind of creating a community where they can get out from their home and find a place where they can meet other people and enjoy themselves. But as a refugee, also, like you say, that's why when you brought up the name, taking refugees away and just global um, farms as a name, because I feel like often there is the first generation of refugees, and there is also they have babies, and those children became American. Do you feel like there is a certain continuity, you know, on the new generation? Are they involved, or they feel like this is not for us and we are have our own interest? Then for me, how do you see um, the family dynamic evolving around your family?
Yeah, wow. Um, our farm is very multi-generational. I'd
Mm,
say that more often than not, the kids are either coming in. Actually, the market farmers there's a name on the 1099 just because we have to have a name, but it's really
Mm,
the whole family who's doing it. So if I say, "Hey, so and so, I need 50 bunches of garlic," the whole family, the grandma, the cousin, the child, the baby, the woman will have the baby on her back while she's picking, you know,
mm,
the teenagers. It's a very multi-generational space, and sometimes that surprised me. I think it also depends on how one grew up as a refugee, because not all refugees come from, some of them come from cities. Like we didn't have a lot of um we didn't when there were a lot of Ukrainian refugees coming, I didn't
mm,
find that they were interested, and I don't want to project. It could be a variety of things, but
mm,
it could also be that they come from urban environments. So they're not like I find that the farmers from Burma are very nostalgic, in that if they're a child, they and then they've grown up to be a teenager, they remember like they remember their agricultural background like in their home country. So I feel like it really depends on the background of the teenagers and the kids. I think that um and I because I'm not Burmese, I can't speak to it necessarily, but I do see tensions sometimes between like how do I reconcile my Burmese identity and my identity as an American. Some of the farmers' kids are more um Americanized,
mm,
um, than others. And I think that they grapple with that in their mind, and they grapple with like, how do I maintain this cultural tradition and honor my culture while still like fitting in, um, which is such a gross word, like, while still existing in America. And I don't know what that's like because I didn't immigrate here, um but I know that they struggle with that.
um, I also, through my observation, living in this city for many years, I see a real estate crisis
Yeah. Yeah.
going on, and your one of your motto basically is to find an empty space, empty spot, and trying to grow um, vegetable on it. Do you have any challenges with what is going on, the lack of housing and all those kind of things? How do you deal with those issues? Because you want to find empty lot and there are developers who want to build more housing. How that come to play and how do you deal with that situation?
Yeah. One example of that is in Rogers Park, at Howard and um I guess that's Ashland. There's a 1 acre community garden, and there's an empty lot at the end of it.
Mm.
And um, it looks like they're going to build a housing development there, and it's
Oh,
caused
okay.
a lot of tension in the community. But
Mm.
I got permission to use that lot from the alderwoman, Maria Haddon. Um, but she said you can use it, but we're gonna build there in a few years. Now, I've also heard, I haven't lived in Rogers Park for that long, but I've also heard that they've been saying that for a long time. So,
Mm.
who knows if that's actually going to happen? But yeah, having affordable housing is important. Having green space is important. I don't have the answers on how to reconcile those,
Mm.
but um, as far as like how is real estate getting more expensive, that's affected. Like our farmers try to hold on to their housing
Mm.
by the farm, their apartments. Some of them will just like pack more and more people into the apartment to make it cheaper, and
I
you
see.
know
Mm.
not tell the landlord. But they they all want to live close to the farm. They all want to live within walking distance, and it's getting harder and harder in Albany Park. And a lot of refugees are not getting resettled in that area anymore. I noticed that
Mm.
they're getting resettled more like, well, they're getting resettled all over Chicago, but there are a lot of them in like West Ridge, West Rogers Park, Skokie.
Mm.
Um, so that'll dictate the housing costs will dictate where we look for land. It wouldn't make sense for me to look for land in like even if there was a great lot in Lincoln Park, it wouldn't make that much sense, I don't
Yeah.
think. So it would take more research on my part too to see like where are the refugees getting resettled I would have to have a lot of conversations with people and stakeholders and understand where the best spot would be, while also taking into consideration that it's hard to find land anywhere in Chicago in general. There's a
Mm,
lot on the south side, like the far south suburbs of Chicago. Um, but most of our farmers seem to be up here. So, it would probably have to be somewhere on the northwest side. But yeah, housing costs um are affecting a lot. That would dictate
mm.
where it goes. So
I, through I think your organization encumber different aspects. Like there is the farming, there is the cultural aspect, and there is creating a community. That must be very inspiring to many people. So, did you have any organization who kind of see the desire of coming to study your work and wanna replicate that same work in their own community? Did you have any kind of organization? Would you mind name them the time they came to learn about your work and what they did with what they learned?
mhm. That's a good question. I haven't since since being so I've been director since January, and we do have a lot of people, schools, community groups, others, college students. We have a lot of people visit the farm. We offer tours. Um, and what they do with that information, I'm not always sure. I think they just soak it up and are,
Mm,
enjoy seeing an urban farm in Chicago. So yeah, since my time as director, I haven't had anyone come with the interest in duplicating it,
mm,
but I have are on duplicating our model specifically, but I've had people interested in starting a farm, starting a garden, like in a general sense. But I believe that Linda, our previous director, has had conversations like that with people. Um, I don't know of any examples of people who went off and started their own thing based on our model, but there are a lot of other models in the U. A lot of other like Global Growers in Atlanta is a really great refugee agriculture project.
mm,
That's very established. There's also one called Global Greens in Iowa. There's one called Tending Traditions in like Maryland, I think it is. So there are a
mm,
lot of these projects around, and they're all kind of have like global this, global that, blah blah blah,
mm.
named after them. But uh, we're all operating. There are similarities and differences between us all. Um,
Okay. Being around no-profit organization, I learn often you need volunteers. If somebody learn about your organization and want to do volunteering work with you, what are the different steps the person should take to get involved?
yeah.
And what
So
are the requirements? So,
yeah. So we have limited volunteer opportunities available. They because the farmers take care of their own gardens, we don't have any like get your hands dirty type of volunteer work necessarily, like with
mm,
planting and harvesting. But our volunteer opportunities center around like this year we built some compost bins, so we had help from volunteers building those. We sometimes have volunteer like just cleanup days. We have maybe you take photos and you want to photograph one of our concerts. So we have
mm,
a variety of things, and it's um we have an email list on our website. Our website, which is brand new, is globalgardenschicago.org. It was previously globalgardenfarm.org. Um, but yeah, we have this new website where you can go and fill out a volunteer form, and it just give your name and email. And then when we do have opportunities available, our program manager sends out an email with the opportunity announcement, and it's just kind of first come, first serve. But we have
Mm.
a variety of things, everything from, yeah, cleanup to if you have artistic skills to, yeah, anything.
Miss Ali LeRand, uh, thank you very much for joining me. It was a pleasure
Yeah.
talking to you on the Human Rights Tree, and thank you for joining me and sharing about your organization. Um, what can you tell people who would love to do gardening and or who are reluctant to getting into gardening? I want to give you the last word before we close our conversation.
I think gardening is a very healing thing you can do, and that you might, um, you'll learn about plants and about nature, I'm sure, but I think you'll also learn a lot about yourself.
Mm,
And that's something that, yeah, that might come in as an unexpected surprise. I think that's a good way to close
I
it.
see. Again, thank you very much for joining me under the Human Rights Tree. I
Thank you
will
so
all
much.
I will always follow up along the journey and see how your organization evolve. Again, thank
Thank
you.
you so much. I appreciate it. Have a good day.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye bye.